Hello, hello, hello. It's Knits for Sanity, and welcome to day 19 of my holiday celebration with my Happy Mermaid Yarn Advent Calendar. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's bit of holiday trivia or facts and tidbits is kind of bringing a bunch of different things that we've talked about this month, and we're kind of bringing them all together. Today's question that was asked by me, and I decided to look into it a little bit, was why does Santa wear the color red? And like I said, this will be incorporating some information that we've already learned earlier this month and kind of putting it all together. Well, as you know, if you've been following along this month, Christmas was not always celebrated in the United States. That was something that happened a little bit later on during the 19th century before it really became an established holiday for this country. Of course, other countries around the world had been celebrating Christmas for a very long time, particularly in Northern Europe. And indeed, many of our American Christmas traditions do hold their origins with European traditions. But your red Santa Claus, your jolly, rosy-cheeked Santa Claus, that is strictly American. Here's the whole story. So, when the United States was not yet practicing Christmas on the regular, some cities, such as New York, were rather riotous places, and the emerging middle class at that time sought to kind of have a sobering effect on society. And so in 1804, an antiquarian named John Pintard founded a historical society, and he rediscovered the 4th century Saint Nicholas, who, as you probably know, is the patron saint of gift giving. And in Northern European countries, such as the Netherlands, which is it's most commonly associated with, they had long been celebrating St. Nicholas and his death specifically, which was the 6th of December in the year 343. And their Santa Claus celebration happened between the 5th and 6th of December every year. John Pintard kind of reworked it a little bit. He included a lot of the Dutch heritage stuff. Keep in mind, New York at this time in history was full of Dutch immigrants. It was a very large Dutch population. And he changed the name Sinterklaas, which itself was already a contraction of Saint Nicholas, and he renamed it as Santa Claus. At this point in time, though, any images that were created of Santa Claus were in black and white. So there are early pictures of Santa Claus, but they're in black and white. There's no telling what he was actually wearing color-wise. However, Santa Claus quickly kind of developed a different personality, his own unique style. Started with Washington Irving, when he published a book called History of New York, which included a lot of Dutch traditions. And this was the first time that Santa Claus was kind of introduced to the rest of the country at that time in history. But what really started kicking this off, and we've talked about this before, was the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, or The Night Before Christmas, or It Was the Night Before Christmas. Originally, it was published anonymously in 1823. Later, Clement Clarke Moore said that he was the one who indeed wrote this original poem. It's up in the air. It is slightly debated. Other people think Henry Livingston Jr. wrote it. I did a whole episode on that. If you want, you can go back and find it. However, it is this poem that eventually led to our modern image of Santa Claus. For example, the poem mentions things like his chin was as white as the snow. He had a broad face and a little round belly. It mentions his rosy cheeks, his dimples, his nose like a cherry, his eyes, how they twinkled. This jolly ho-ho-hoing Santa was a far contrast to the often more severe European figure, who was known to possibly whip children with a cane if they were naughty, leave them very unfortunate gifts if they were poorly behaved. But even now, Santa Claus was not yet dressed in red. Don't worry, we are getting there. The tradition of him wearing red began in the 1870s by an American cartoonist, Thomas Nast. He was the first one who put Santa Claus, at least publicly displayed him in a publication, in a red suit and cap with white fur lining and a buckled black belt in Harper's Weekly. He did several images for more than 20 years, and his Santa Claus was not always in red. At first, it was in stars and stripes. He was a Union supporter during the Civil War. He even drew Santa Claus wearing green. But it was his image that was published in 1881 that really started to take hold with an American psyche of what Santa Claus was meant to look like. If you want, you can look this up. Just look up Nast 1881 image of Santa, and you will see the portrait. Why Nast settled on red, we don't really know. There are three leading theories. The first is it may have been a link to the iconography of the original St. Nicholas, who is often depicted in red robes. Some also think that it may have owed something to the English tradition of Father Christmas. But more than likely, Nast just felt like it felt right, particularly after reading and knowing the poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, so well. Nast was also the first one to portray Santa as a native of the North Pole. Even though Nast did create this 1881 image of Santa that did help to firmly establish Santa Claus as wearing a red suit, it was not a guaranteed, and it was not a condition that Santa Claus had to be in red until about the 1920s and 30s. And it was artists like Norman Rockwell and J.C. Leidendecker who started drawing Santa Claus in red for the Saturday Evening Post. But then, in 1931, it was the Coca-Cola Company who commissioned a painting by Haddon Sundblom to paint Santa Claus sipping a Coke. That Santa Claus, from then forward, would never, ever be conceivably seen in anything other than red. The Coca-Cola promotion, or not promotion, the Coca-Cola campaign the tagline was "Thirst knows no season." And of course, all of us have now grown up with the Coca-Cola commercials depicting Santa in his red suit. Sundblom went on to work with Coca-Cola, painting images of Santa Claus for more than 30 years, finishing finally, I believe, in 1964. And there you go. That's the rather long-winded history of why Santa Claus wears red. And our Santa Claus, now, at least by the name of Santa Claus, is kind of the universally recognized image of Santa Claus. So there you have it. All right, so let's open up day 19 and see what we have. It's another good one. I mean, they're all good. I say that every time. I need my mint. So here's my mint. Here is another spoon. This is 2.5 mils or half a teaspoon. Cute. This is the third in the spoon series. And then look at this gorgeous, rich brown. Oh, this is beautiful. It's a really deep, rich, I mean, truly rich brown. It's named Homemade Fudge. Seems completely appropriate. And if you're new, it is 75% merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. It's 87 yards, 20 grams. It is a 2-ply fingering weight yarn. And again, there was an option between doing a sparkle advent calendar, so with sparkle yarn like what I got, the stellina, or not having sparkles. I opted for sparkles. All right, thank you again for joining me today. Please, I hope you come back tomorrow for day 20. We're on our last few days, less than a week, guys, until Christmas. And like I always say, please practice kindness. You never know what anyone is going through. And I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you again real soon.